Good morning. My name is Mark, and I'm a UU. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Stockton as we begin our 122nd year. We welcome anyone and everyone to join us in our search for truth and meaning from the teachings of science and the wisdom of the world's religions. Please join us as we seek ways to live and act with principle in a confusing and imperfect world. I'm today's service leader, and our guest this morning is Rev Samuel. We're glad to have him back. He's at the piano. After the service, please come down for a coffee and conversation. And if you aren't getting our newsletter but would like to, fill out the little yellow card in the pew in front of you. Before we, and put it in the offering plate when it comes around. Could you back me off just a little bit, Jeff? It seems kind of hot. Before we make any announcements, does anyone wish to care to admit to an anniversary or birthday? Anyone? Anyone? Are there any announcements this morning? You can start us off. Thank you, Samuel. This morning's chalice lighting is written by Jamie Yandel. We light this flame to ignite the sacred power of justice. We light this flame so that it may become a beacon of hope in moments of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and the unknown. We light this flame and are emboldened by its blaze, knowing our strength as a prophetic and powerful people is rooted in the diverse ways we answer the call to love. The opening hymn is number 123, our favorite, Spirit of Life.
Number 123, Spirit of Life, and we will sing this through twice.
If any of you have and drop a stone in the bowl or drop it in silent. A joy shared is a joy enlarged. A sorrow shared is a sorrow lessened. Please.
I have a joy that Minneapolis is still hanging in there, and a concern that they're all exhausted. So this stone's for Minneapolis.
Well, this is a joy. I was telling Samuel that it's a joy to come to church, a church that is alive and vibrant, and that's what we are.
I was with my sister this weekend, who's having some health issues, but the good news in her family is her daughter's daughter, Lucia, is in a school in Palatine, which is about half Hispanic. She is in 7th grade, and she has been organizing a rally and parade. She was so angry that her school wasn't doing anything to stop ICE, and they're all afraid and in danger there. 7th grade, and she organized the whole thing. I just can't believe it. It's a secret, by the way. Don't tell her.
Well, I was going to put in a stone of concern just for all the things going on in our country and in the world that are really too numerous to name, but at least there are people that are organizing and trying to do something about it, so that's a little bit of a joy. And I also wanted to share a joy / just parental brag. Yesterday was the Pinewood Derby for my daughter's scouting troop, and she took first place in her den, so it was a bit of a surprise. So we were very excited. Huh?
Did she make the car, or did her dad do it?
We did not let her use the jigsaw because we wanted her to keep 10 fingers, but she did everything else. The sanding, the adding graphite, the figuring out where to put weights, she did the rest, so yes.
This stone is for all the concerns that are held on your hearts but not shared. And this stone is a prayer that everyone finds a group to share with. This morning's offering is shared with our service partner, which is VIATS. That stands for Volunteer Immigration Transportation Service, and is based out of south of Dubuque for the Guatemalan community. Please be generous.
Morning, everyone. Friends, today we are going to be talking about justice, which is something that is on a lot of our minds. And I wanted to preface that because our readings for today are very justice-oriented. And we're hearing the reading that I'll share with you is an ancient reading. It's about 3,000 years old. The reading that we'll hear, then the second reading is much newer. It comes from, in time at least, comes from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But this reading, I wanted to preface this because as I was looking for texts for this service, I came across this reading from the book of the prophet Amos, which comes out of the Hebrew Bible or the Christian Old Testament. The book of the prophet Amos was written just about 2,700 years ago, so about 700 years before the Common Era. And what I'll be reading to you, is from chapter 5, verses 19 through 24. And as you listen along, I invite you to think about the fact that this is a very old text. This is a text that goes back millennia, and yet it may sound like it could have been written yesterday, which is both very frustrating and also very interesting, that the human condition has a pattern to it. And just like there are those of us who are gathered here and in other places standing up for justice, there were people doing the same millennia ago. So with that, friends, hear these angry and frustrated words from the prophet Amos to the leadership of the kingdom of ancient Israel. He writes, "How horrible will it be for all of you, you rich and powerful rulers, on the day when justice finally comes. Why would you ever want God to actually show up here? For you abusers of the poor and you haters of immigrants, its arrival will mean darkness for you and not light. That day will be like you were running away from a lion only to charge headlong into the arms of a bear. It will be as if you ran into a house to hide and leaned against a wall to rest, only to have a poisonous snake bite you and a scorpion sting you at the same time. It will not be a day of good for you. It will be a day of darkness instead of light. You will find yourself in pitch blackness without a hint of darkness. Hear these words from me, says the Lord. I hate and totally reject the religious ceremonies that you are holding in golden palaces while the poor suffer outside your gates. I will have nothing to do with your solemn gatherings. You can pray to me and offer burnt offerings and grain offerings, but I will not accept them. You can sacrifice your finest, youngest animals as peace offerings, but I will not look at you. And stop making all of that music about me. It is just noise, and I'm tired of it. I will not listen to the melodies you play on your harps because you are lying when you say you care. Here is what I want from you. Let justice thunder down like a waterfall, and let righteousness flow like a mighty river that never runs dry through your streets. I will accept nothing less from you, and until it changes, I will not be with you. Amen.
Fast forward a couple of thousand years. This reading is a selection from one of the letters from the Birmingham jail from Dr. King. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I will agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels that he can settle the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. In the midst of blatant injustices inflicted upon the Negro, I have watched white churches stand on the sideline and merely mouth pious irrelevancies and sanctimonious trivialities. In the midst of a mighty struggle to rid our nation of racial and economic injustice, I have heard so many ministers say, those are social issues with which the gospel has no real concern. And I have watched so many churches commit themselves to a completely otherworldly religion which made a strange distinction between body and soul, the sacred and the secular. Let us all hope that the deep dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away, and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities. And in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all of their scintillating beauty. Yours for the cause of peace and brotherhood, Martin Luther King, Jr.
Friends, at this time we will have our musical meditation, and I invite you to open your hymnal. You'll remain seated, but I invite you to open your hymnal to page 117. 117, O Light of Life. This is a hymn that may be familiar to some of you and unfamiliar to others, but I do think it's quite beautiful, and what I'd like us to do is there are 4 verses, and I will attempt to sing the first 3 verses to you so you can read along and listen, and then I invite you as a response then to join me on the 4th verse, and we will sing the 4th verse together. So with that, O Light of Life. Light of life that lives in us, help us to turn away from war. Reveal the hate that lives in us, help us to live no more in fear. Save us, save our children. O light of love, rain down on us. Help us to heal our wounded world. Our dying forest-gutted plains, smoldering cities, wasted fields. Save us, save our children. O light of life that lives in me, help me to lift my head and sing. Let me know joy as well as pain. See beauty in the rain and wind. Save me, save my children. Won't you join me on the 4th verse? O light of life and love in us, help us to open eyes and ears. Reach out and listen, touch and love, that we may stand in strength and peace. Save us, save our children. Friends, won't you now please join me for a time of quiet meditation? I will ring the bell when it is concluded. Well, good morning, everyone. It is such a joy to be with all of you today. Friends, we are, as was mentioned moments ago, going to be talking about justice. Justice is an important topic for every day, but it is especially important because, of course, justice is one of the 6 values that was put forward as essential for our lived faith and practice as Unitarian Universalists when the new value system, the love at the center system, was adopted by our General Assembly in June of 2024. At the fellowship in Dubuque, we have actually been working through a series looking at these different facets of love at the center and how it impacts everything we do. And so I had planned on coming and talking to you about this today. I had planned this because, frankly, I had planned this a long time ago. When I met with your program committee, actually in the summer, I think it was, we picked the dates that I would be here for the year. And I knew I was going to be working on this series, and so I thought, perfect, when I am with the congregation in Stockton in February, we'll talk about justice, because that's what I'm making everyone listen to me about these days. I share that with you, this idea that this concept had come together in the summer, because while I didn't have everything written out completely, I had a pretty strong sense of what we were going to be talking about. And so it may come as a surprise to you that about 3 weeks ago, I almost changed what we were talking about today. Because I have to tell you that having a conversation, getting up in front of a camera and giving a lecture about justice now feels very different than it did when I planned this idea in July. It feels very different than it did a month ago before Renee Good was murdered. It feels very different now than it did 2 weeks ago before Alex Preddy was shot and killed. And there was a moment, as the crisis continued to escalate, that I almost thought about not talking to you about justice today. I was afraid that it would be seen as overly political or reactionary to current events. I was concerned that you would think I was just adding more noise to the social upheaval that we are in. And frankly, as a public figure now working at a place that I need money from people and I go out and do fundraising, I was a little afraid of saying something that might get out and offend someone and hurt my bottom line. And yet here we are, friends. Here we are talking about justice today. And we're talking about it because in the midst of my nervousness of being decried as partisan or opportunistic, I came to the realization that fear should not control the things that we do or the things that we say. It's worth noting that it's never really a good time or a safe time or a perfect time to say the things that need to be said. Our values do not exist only when they are palatable to others. And perhaps this is a main lesson we can take from today's gathering. I do have other things to say, but if you learn nothing else, perhaps this is it. No matter what is going on around us, no matter what the government is up to, no matter how frightening the times can be, if we are going to say we believe in something, then we have to believe in it. We have to believe in it even when it's hard or scary to do so. We have to believe in it even when it seems like the majority is not on our side. And we say we believe in justice. We say we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, regardless of their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, or their origin, their country of origin. And if we believe that, then we have to talk about it and act like it, even when it's uncomfortable. And so, we are talking about justice today. And specifically, we're going to be looking at justice in dialogue with a cultural value. So if justice is our value as Unitarian Universalists, we're going to be putting it in dialogue with another cultural value that exists around us. And that value is the value of security. So to begin, I think we need to clarify what we mean by justice. If you were to go to Article 2 of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association and go to Section C-2-2 and look at lines 31 through 34, you will find this statement. It says, quote, "We as Unitarian Universalists are called to justice. We are called to work to be a diverse, multicultural, beloved community where all people can thrive. We covenant together to dismantle racism in all forms and dismantle all forms of systematic oppression. We as Unitarian Universalists commit to use inclusive democratic processes in our decision-making within our congregations, in our association, and we commit to promoting democratic values in our society at large." Now, by contrast, the Oxford Dictionary gives us two definitions for the word security. The first is, quote, "the state of being protected from danger or threat." The second definition, however, is one that I think is really interesting. This is the definition of security. Security is the state of feeling safe against perceived threats, real or unreal. Security is the state of feeling free from anxieties that may or may not actually exist. And it's this definition, this idea of security being a feeling that may or may not be real, is something I want us to talk about. At its face, of course, there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel safe or secure, but the problem arises when calls for security for some outweigh justice for all. And it's this feeling safe, this feeling secure, that has become a major political talking point today. We have government officials and talking heads who say, "We want you to feel safe from those people. They're a danger to us, and so we have to control them." This, of course, is the rationale behind the ICE raids. We, us, are feeling unsafe from those people, and so they need to be rounded up and removed. The travel bans against Muslim-majority countries was sold this way, too. Those people make us unsafe. We have to deal with them to keep us feeling secure. Increased policings in cities that are African American majority, or in cities like Minneapolis that are not just bending over for the government. We're told that those actions are done to keep us safe from them. And of course, this is not a new thing, right? In times past, it was Japanese internment camps during World War II that were meant to keep us safe from them. Segregated neighborhoods were to keep us safe from them. Literacy-tested voting stations were sold as actions to keep us safe from them. Please note the use of the word us a lot. And this idea that there is always an us and there's always a them, and that us and them is always changing, but there's always the security of the us that takes precedent over the rights of the them. And friends, when this language occurs, we have to always call it out. we have to always draw attention to it. The othering of a particular group of people always leads to injustice. Separation is not equal, and it never has been, and it never will be. And the moment we start separating people into camps, there's the them and the us, this becomes a control tactic to pit people against each other and to shift focus away from a true crisis at hand. Friends, in his famous poem, First They Came, Pastor Martin Niemöller writes of discovering the us and theming a little too late. Some of you may be familiar with this poem, First They Came, and I'll read it to you in a moment. But the backstory to the poem is one that I didn't know until very recently, and I think it's really powerful and adds some weight to the poem. The author, Martin Niemöller, was a Lutheran pastor in Germany in the 1930s and was originally a pretty ardent Nazi supporter. Pastor Niemöller saw their crackdown on the various groups that were being cracked down on, the various thems that were being targeted, as a good thing for the sake of the German nation. But when the Nazis began to exert their influence over the Lutheran Church, Niemöller spoke out. He believed that he could demand freedoms that had not been extended to others because he was part of the us. Martin Niemöller was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, German-born Lutheran. Who could be more part of the us than him? But suddenly, by speaking out, Pastor Niemöller became them. And he was rounded up just like the thems had been before him, and he found himself dropped in a concentration camp and labeled an enemy of the state, just like those thems that he had opposed before. And in a moment of clarity and regret, realizing what he had done, he wrote his famous poem that says, "First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me, and so I was taken." Since we're talking about the Nazis, a quick segue here. I also think it's important to state, as we're talking about justice, that just because something is legal doesn't mean it's moral or ethically appropriate. One of the things that has concerned me about the conversation around the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy is the debate about whether or not those killings were legal. Now, obviously, for practical reasons, we do need to have those conversations, perhaps. But what I'm concerned about is that we're beginning to conflate something being legal to something being morally appropriate. So let me go on the record right now. When a judge decides that the murder of Alex Preddy was legal, I will still think it was wrong. Murder is wrong, even if a judge says it's okay. Even if the government is able to clear itself of any legal wrongdoing, those actions are inappropriate. And if we start equating what is lawful with what is good, we will end up with a lot of problems. While Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail is quite well known, perhaps a less known quote of Dr. King says this, quote, "We should never forget that everything that Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal, and that everything that the Hungarian freedom fighters did to stop him was illegal." Friends, laws are meant to uphold justice. We need laws. But laws are not immune from misuse. They're not immune from misinterpretation, and they are not immune from intentional twisting for harm. Just because something becomes okay in a court of law does not mean that it is morally acceptable. But friends, while internment camps and ice raids and the Nazis are easy examples of moments where security, this feeling safe for some of us, has been chosen over the justice for all. Well, these sort of, I don't want to call them extreme moments, but big moments like ice raids and Nazi regimes are easy to point at and say that's injustice. In our second reading, it was noted that there is a noticeably more respectable way that injustice can exist, that can be just as insidious as the overt acts of oppression. In his letter to the white clergy of Birmingham, Alabama, Dr. King notes that it is not the KKK that he is most worried about, but it's the white, well-intentioned moderates. Those who opt for peace and concord over real justice, those who want incremental change over freedom, those who would prefer to have pleasant conversations instead of enacting true and meaningful action. It is those people that Dr. King says are the most worrisome. Friends, it is easy to look out around us and point to the evils that we see in the world blatantly enacted by those in power and condemn it. And to be clear, we should. When we see injustice, we must call it out. But calling out an injustice out there cannot somehow absolve us or allow us to ignore our secret prejudices in here. If we're truly going to be people of justice, we must always be on guard against allowing ourselves to slide into apathy or adopting views secretly that are harmful and unjust. Friends, if we do not do the work of justice in our own hearts, in our own families, in our own communities, we will become the people that Jesus of Nazareth warned of when he said, quote, "Why do you try and pull a speck from your brother's eye when there is a plank in your own? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me remove that speck for you,' when look, you have a plank in your own eye?" Jesus goes on to say, quote, "You hypocrites, remove the plank from your own eye first, and then you will be able to more clearly see the speck in your brother's eye." Friends, as we prepare to go from this place then, I have two questions I'd like to leave you with. The first is this: where are we letting fear have more control over us than we should? Where are our words and our actions being manipulated by fear or nervousness about what people will think of us, what people will say, what people will wonder? Where is fear holding us back from doing what we believe is right? Where is fear silencing us when justice demands that we speak out? And where do we need to remind ourselves that we are not alone in this striving for justice? Sometimes it can feel like when we're doing the right thing, we are alone, but we're not. Look at us. Here we are. And there are others gathered in other places standing up for the right thing. Fear tells us that we're alone. Love reminds us that we are not. My second question, though, is this: where in the sacred places of our hearts are we allowing prejudices and hatred to fester? Where is it that we are ignoring our own inner spiritual work in favor of pointing the finger at others? As we go from this place, then, friends, I hope that we will not be afraid to be people of justice. I hope that we will speak truth to power and demand that justice roll down like a mighty stream, as the prophet Amos said. I hope that we will not be a white, moderate church that sits on the sideline while people in need suffer. And I hope that we will be willing to do the work both in here and out there to ensure that we are not just a people who talk about justice, but are a people who actually, truly, deeply, and meaningfully live it each and every day. May it be so. Amen. Closing hymn, if you will stand and join me as you are able, is number 169. 169, We Shall Overcome. Friends, what I'd like us to do is sing all 4 verses and then actually return to verse 1. So we'll sing verses 1 through 4 and then back to verse 1. We shall overcome, which we will sing as soon as I can actually find the music. There it is. Friends, our chalice extinguishing comes to us from Scott Cooper, who writes, "The world aches for us to join together and bring about healing. It aches for us to toil for justice and produce ever-increasing love. This is our calling, friends. Let us go forth and act accordingly. Amen. Please join us downstairs for coffee. You are dismissed.